Okay, I'm sure that was a little loud. Just to kind of let you know what's going on, this will be the last week of formal lessons for us. This is Friday evening, and actually it's 10:44 at night. It's the latest set of videos that I have done, but I am determined to get them done tonight so that I can spend the weekend just enjoying myself. It's going to be in the mid 70s and sunny, and I do not want these lessons kind of looming over me. So if you submitted anything on Friday at all, you'll notice that they didn't get checked. I was at the school for about to 1 o'clock-ish on Friday, and I came home and started working on the other classes videos, and it is now, like I said, 10:44, and my day has been full of schoolwork. So you're watching this on Monday, I hope. So I will pick back up, going back and looking at your lessons that you had turned in. Layla, glad to see you. Wrong class, but she is one that had kind of been holding out on me. And so if you've got her on Instagram or text or FaceTime, tell her I gave her a shout out. So anyway, the next 2 weeks after this, we have 3 weeks of school left starting when this begins. So we got this week, and then we have Friday as a test day. You do not have team talks that will get us through a week 3. So we're still going to be doing our book, but it's going to be, sorry, my hearing aid's making my ear itch. But it's going to be a different type of lesson. So just kind of keep that in mind as we are finishing up with this particular week. So Friday is test day. We'll get that knocked out, and then, like I said, we have 2 more weeks, and then we are done. So we want to kind of begin with our end in mind for today. And our end in mind is identifying cause and effect relationships in our story. It's pretty much the same end in mind as the other classes had with the giver. Thinking about here is an outcome, that would be your effect, the outcome, and then what made that outcome transpire, that is your cause. So when we were finishing up reading on Friday of Thursday of last week, what was taking place in our story was the outcome or the effect was that Stacy and the siblings had followed TJ to the Wallace store, where Stacy got into a pretty hand-on-hand fight with TJ. That was the outcome. What made that take place? That's your cause. The cause was because TJ was cheating on the test, and he slid his things over to Stacy so he wouldn't get caught. Let me take my hearing aids out because they are killing me. Makes my ear just itch where it vibrates. So he threw those answer sheets over to TJ or to Stacy, and Stacy got caught with them. And TJ didn't fess up and say, "Hey man, they're mine." And so because TJ passed them to Stacy, and Stacy got caught with them, and TJ wasn't man enough to own it, Stacy got publicly humiliated in front of his class. He got a spanking from his mother in front of his class, and he decided to take care of business. So that is kind of where we were with that cause and effect relationship. Now, we could take that even further back into our story where, let's say week 1. where the berry burning took place. And the lady that was with the berries went to the sheriff's office and was trying to explain to the sheriff what took place. Well, the effect is the sheriff told her to go away. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't believe it. And the cause was because he was a racist and he didn't believe her because she was black. So cause and effect relationships take place every single day. Every time you do something, there is an outcome to your action. And your action can be physically action. It can be the actions of your words. But there is always an outcome to something. All right. Now, I want to look at our vocabulary real quick. And we have prolong, which is to make things longer. We have staggered, which is walk unsteadily. Towered, reached high, or loomed over. Remember, it's like, oh, I'm over you. Nauseous is sick. Recognizable is familiar or known. We have penetrate, which is to go into. And remember about me stepping on that nail and it penetrated all the way through to the top of my foot. The nail was sticking out of the top. Objected is protested against, and retaliated is come back at or counterattacked. So, retaliated. And I feel like that's what Stacy is doing with TJ in that Thursday reading. It's like, you did this to me, man, you're going to get it. So, it's that tit for tat kind of thing. Now, I'd like us to pick up our books. No, let's break our questions down first. So let's go to day 3 questions. So if you'll grab those out for me. Isabella, it's water, not tea, not wise at 10:50 at night. I'll probably be up half the night going to the bathroom, but I'm thirsty. All right, so you have found your team talk. I'm going to read them and you break them down. Number 1, why does Mama take the kids to see Mr. Barry? Ooh, she's taking them to see Mr. Barry. Remember, he was the one that was involved in the burning. Number 2, which of the following describes how Cassie feels when she sees Mr. Barry's condition? Is she relieved, angry, encouraged, or appalled? Okay, which of those describes Cassie's feelings? Number 3, explain how Mama and Mr. Turner's ideas about the Wallace store are similar and different. How are their ideas similar and different? And 4, which of the following will most likely happen next in our story? Is it Mama will find someone to sign for Mr. Turner's credit? Mama will forget all about Mr. Turner's credit problems. Mama will make Mr. Turner fix his credit problems himself, or Mama will ask Cassie to help fix Mr. Turner's credit problems. So we'll have to figure out what's going on with Mr. Turner here in a moment. All right, so page 95. I'm going to lean against my chair here and let's get started. Despite our every effort to persuade Stacy otherwise, when Mama came home, he confessed that he had been fighting TJ at the Wallace store and that Mr. Morrison had stopped it. He stood awkwardly before her, disclosing only those things which he could honorably mention. He said nothing of TJ's cheating or that Christopher John, Little Man, and I had been with him. And when Mama asked him a question he could not answer honestly, he simply looked at his feet and refused to speak. The rest of us sat fidgeting nervously throughout the interview, and when Mama looked our way, we swiftly found somewhere else to rest our eyes. Finally, seeing that she had gotten all the information she was going to get from Stacy, Mama turned to us. I suppose you 3 went to the store too, huh? But before any of us could answer or squeak an answer, she exclaimed, That does it?" and began to pace the floor, her arms folded, her face cross. And although she scolded us severely, she did not whip us. We were sent to bed early, but we didn't consider that a punishment, and we doubted that Mama did either. How we had managed to escape a whipping we couldn't fathom until Saturday, when Mama woke us before dawn and piled us into the wagon, taking us southwest towards Smellings Creek, she said. "Well, where we're going, the man is very sick, and he doesn't look like other people. But I don't want you to be afraid or uncomfortable when you see him. Just be yourselves." Well, we rode for almost 2 hours before turning onto a backwoods trail, and we were jarred and bounced over the rough road until we entered a clearing where a small weather-grayed house stood and fields stretched barren beyond it. As Mama pulled up on the reins and ordered us down, the front door creaked warily open, but no one appeared. Then Mama said, "Good morning, Miss Berry. It's Mary Logan, David's wife." Well, the door swung wide and an elderly woman, frail and toothless, stepped out. Her left arm hung crazily at her side, as if it had been broken long ago, but had not mended properly. And she walked with a limp, yet she smiled widely, throwing her good arm around Mama and hugging her. "Land sakes, child, ain't you something?" she exclaimed. "Coming to see about these old bones. I just says to Sam, I says, 'Who you reckon coming to see old folks like us?' They're your babies, ain't they? Lord Almighty, ain't they fine? Sure is." And she hugged each of us and ushered us into the house. Well, the interior was dark, lit only by the narrow slat of gray daylight allowed in by the open door. Well, Stacy and I carried cans of milk and butter, and Christopher, John, and Little Man each had a jar of beef and a jar of Crowder peas, which Mama and Big Ma had canned. While Miss Berry took the food, her thanks intermingled with questions about Big Ma and Papa and others. When she had put the food away, she pulled stools from the darkness and motioned us to sit down. Then she went to the blackest corner and said, "Now, Daddy, who you suppose done come to see about us?" Well, there was no recognizable answer, only an inhuman guttural wheezing. But Miss Berry seemed to accept it and went on. "Why, Miss Logan and her babies, ain't that something?" And she took a sheet from a nearby table. "Gots to cover him," she explained. "He can't hardly stand to have nothing touch him." When she was visible again, she picked up a candle stump and felt around the table for matches. "Now, he can't speak no more. The fire burned him too bad, but he understands all right." Finding the matches, she lit the candle and turned once more to the corner. A still form lay there, staring at us with glittering eyes. The face had no nose, and the head no hair. The skin was scarred and burned, and the lips were wizened black like charcoal. As the wheezing sound echoed from the opening that was a mouth, Mama said, "Say good morning to Miss Berry's husband, children." Well, the boys and I stammered a greeting and then sat silently, trying not to stare at Mr. Berry during the hour that we remained in the small house. But Mama talked softly to both Mr. and Mrs. Berry, telling them the news of the community as if Mr. Berry were as normal as anyone else. Now, after we were on the main road again, having ridden in thoughtful silence over the wooded trail, Mama said quietly, "The Wallaces did that, children. They poured kerosene over Mr. Berry and his nephews and lit them afire. One of the nephews died. The other one is just like Mr. Berry." She allowed this information to penetrate the silence and then went on. See that penetrate? To go into. Everyone knows they did it, and the Wallaces even laugh about it, but nothing was ever done. They're bad people, the Wallaces. That's why I don't want you to ever go to their store again for any reason. You understand?" We nodded, unable to speak as we thought of the disfigured man lying in the darkness. Along the way home, we stopped at the homes of some of Mama's students, where families poured out attendance shacks to greet us. At each farm, Mama spoke of the bad influences of the Wallaces, of the smoking and drinking permitted at their stores, and asked that the family's children not be allowed to go there. The people nodded and said she was right. She also spoke of finding another store to patronize, one where the proprietors mean owners, were more concerned about the welfare of the community. But she did not speak directly of what the Wallaces had done to the Berries, for, as she explained later, there was something that wavered between the known and the unknown, and to mention it outright to anyone outside of those with whom you were closest was not wise. There were too many ears that listened for others besides themselves, and too many tongues that wagged to those they shouldn't. And the people only nodded, and Mama left. When we reached the Turner farm, Mo's witted father rubbed his stubbled chin and squinted across the room at Mama. "Miss Logan," he said, "you know I feels the same way you do about them low-down Wallaces. But it ain't easy just to stop shopping there. They overcharges me, and I has to pay them high interest. But I got credit there, 'cause Mr. Monteer signs for me. Now, you know most folks around here sharecropping on Monteer, Granger, or Harrison land. And most of them just about got to shop at that Wallace store or up at that Mercantile in Strawberry, which is just about as bad. Can't go no place else." And Mama nodded solemnly, showing that she understood. And then she said, "For the past year now, our family's been shopping down at Vicksburg. There are a number of stores down there, and we found several that treat us well." "Vicksburg?" Mr. Turner echoed, shaking his head. "Lord, Miss Logan, you ain't expecting me to go all the way to Vicksburg. That's an overnight journey in a wagon down there and back." And Mama thought on that a moment. "What if someone would be willing to make the trip for you? Go all the way to Vicksburg and bring back what you need." "Won't do no good," retorted Mr. Turner. "I got no cash money. Mr. Monteer signs for me up at that Wallace store so's I can get my tools and my mule, my seed, my fertilizer, my food, and what few clothes I need to keep my children from running plumb naked. When cotton picking time comes, he sells my cotton, takes half of it, pays my debt, and up at that store and my interest for they credit, then charges me 10 to 15% more at risk money for signing for me in the first place. This year, I earned me near $200. But after Mr. Monteer took his half of the crop money, but I ain't seen a penny of it. In fact, if I manage to come out even without owing that man nothing, I figure I've had a good year. Now, who way down in Vicksburg gonna give a man like me credit?" And Mama was quiet and did not answer. "I's sure sorry, Miss Logan. I'm gonna keep my young'uns from up at that store, but I got to live. Y'all got it better than most folks around here 'cause y'all got your own place. And y'all ain't got a cowtail to a lot of this stuff. But you gotta understand it ain't easy for sharecropping folks to do what you asking." "Mr. Turner," Mama said in a whisper, "what if someone backed your signature? Would you shop up in Vicksburg then?" Mr. Turner looked at Mama strangely. "Now, who'd sign for me?" "If someone would you do it?" Mr. Turner gazed into the fire, burning to a low ash, then got up, put another log on it, taking his time as he watched the fire shoot upward and suck in the log. Without turning around, he said, When I was a wee little boy, I got burnt real bad. It healed over, but I ain't never forgot the pain of it. It's an awful way to die. Then turning, he faced Mama. Miss Logan, you find someone to sign my credit, and I'll consider it deeply. And after we left the Turners, Stacy asked, Mama, who you gonna get to sign? But Mama, her brow furrowed, did not reply. I started to repeat the question, but Stacy shook his head, and I settled back wondering. And then I fell asleep. So this last 2 pages here is talking about credit. And if we were in the classroom, we would be popcorning out ideas about what do we think this piece really means when it talks about credit and somebody backing your credit or signing for you. And without the luxury of having students around you or peers, I guess I'm just going to talk about it. One of the things I want you to think about your own families. And some of your families have credit cards. They may have a Visa card, a MasterCard, a Lowe's card, a Walmart card, just to name a few. And what those cards allow you to do is it allows you to buy something now and to put off paying for it until later. Now, with a credit card, no one is signing for you, but that is a type of credit, okay? Now, the most common type of credit that a lot of Americans have that is the credit that it requires to buy a house. And what you're doing with that is you have collateral to stand for the loan. It's another type of credit. So when you go to buy a house, most people do not have $100,000 in cash or $200,000, whatever the amount is that you are purchasing for your house. Most of us do not go into the bank or go to the realtor and say, okay, here's cash money. I just, pulled it out of the sock drawer. Here you go. It doesn't work that way unless you've won the lottery. So most of us have to go to a bank. We fill out a loan application. They run our credit score to make sure that we are in good standing, which means that you pay your bills on time, that you've paid back money that you've borrowed in the past. And if you qualify for the loan, then every month for 20 years or 30 years, you pay the bank back a payment. Now, no one signed behind you, but your house stands good for the loan. It's the collateral, which means that if for some reason you can't pay for the house, then the bank comes in and they ask you to leave, or the sheriff comes and tells you you have to leave, and then the bank takes your house. It's not a great situation, but it happens sometimes to no fault of the people that live there. It's a loss of jobs. Different financial situations come about than what it was when you purchased the house, and now you can no longer afford it. Ain't no shame in that. You just kind of shake yourself off, pick yourself up, and you just start all over again. Now, the type of credit our story is talking about, though, is when during this time, you would have credit at a local store. And you would have someone else in the community that would go into the store and they would say, all right, Miss Kim here is allowed to charge $400. And if she doesn't pay for it, then I will pay the $400. So the person who is signing behind me is assuming that I'm going to be able to pay my debt, okay? They know me. They feel like in good faith that I will pay that. So that's what what he's talking about. Mr. Turner's talking about that Mr. Monterre does for him. Now, So he's telling Mama, you know, if you can find someone else that's going to sign for me, I'm willing to do it. But at this point, I don't have a choice. I got to shop where I can shop to survive. So that's our credit lesson. And we're going to stop right here today. No journal questions. Do a little dance. All right. See you in a minute. Bye, guys.